to be kidding me. Okay. Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom.
Barcelona.
All right, we are back. Getting all the kinks worked out over here. Okay, very good. Thank you for our little chat folks over there letting us know that I'm over here talking with the mics on mute. Okay. Again, as I was saying, we want to go ahead and get back into the Torah portion. We were, of course, dealing with the various feast days that we were dealing with, that were landing on the Shabbat. So we, the last time we were in the Torah portion was at least 2 weeks ago, I think it seems. So we want to get back into it this week. Today's Torah portion, we'll be looking at Exodus 22 verses 25 through the end of chapter 23. Exodus 22 and 25 all the way through the end of chapter 23, okay, which is verse 33 over there. And so today, where we will be beginning over in the Torah portion, where it begins over there, and what we just will call this midrash is when you lend. When you lend. Okay, and so we want to go ahead. We want to do a couple little preliminary things dealing with these scriptures, because if you can remember, or even if you can't remember, I'll refresh your memory as we were dealing the last time we was dealing with the judgments. We was looking at the Most High's judgments that he had put in place for Israel. We spoke about how those judgments were different from the Ten Commandments, for instance. Is saying, do this or don't do that. Where when we deal with the judgments, it gives you a way to deal with a particular situation if that particular situation was to come about, where it's slightly different than a judgment, than a command. And so when we was looking at the judgments of Yahweh, we talked about the fact that, his judgments dealt with equity, right? They dealt with justice. And we also dealt with the fact that when we think about the Most High's laws, statutes, and commands, it helps us to understand his character. And it also helps us to understand the character that he will have for us to possess and carry out. I want to go ahead. So when we think about the Torah, we always want to think about the Torah in this way. Well, hold on. Let me just hit.
This is a Direct Account exclusive.
Okay, because we want to remember, right, that the Torah is the character of the Most High humanized, right? The Torah is the character of the Most High humanized. So when we think about the heavenlies, the holy of holies, the place where the Most High dwells, there's no need for there to be a thing of you shouldn't murder, or you shouldn't steal or covet, and those things in his presence. within his character, those things don't exist. But he gives us these laws, statutes, and commands so that we are able to mimic, so that we are able to manifest his character, right? And so we want to think about that, right? And so let's before we get into the Torah portion, let's look at a couple other things over here. Let's move over. Let's look at what it says over in Deuteronomy 10, 17, and 18. For us, this is something that I've stated several times, right? But I want to have this be refreshed in our minds. Deuteronomy 10, 17, and 18.
So for Yahweh Elohim is Elohim of mighty ones and master of masters and great El, mighty and awesome, who shows no partiality nor takes a bribe. He executes right ruling for the fatherless and the widow and loves the stranger, giving him food and a garment.
Okay, very good. So what I wanted to call your attention to, first of all, we're talking about the judgments, the law of the Most High, and we see over here, even over here in this statement, saying that he's great, he's mighty, he's awesome, and he is just, right? Who shows no partiality nor takes a bribe, right? He executes right ruling for the fatherless, right? It's showing you his character in these couple verses over here. But the thing that I always like to bring up is the fact that where it says over here, he executes right ruling, he does that through his people, right? It's talking about the Most High. For Yahweh, your Elohim is Elohim of mighty ones, master of masters, great is give. It's talking about the Most High. He over here, the he in the sentence is Yah. He executes right ruling. How does he do it? Through his people doing his law, right? And so the Most High's character is manifest through people who are walking out his law, statutes, commands, right? Okay, we're gonna go somewhere else. We get into the Torah portion, but we want this little beginning thing. We want the little foundation of what we're dealing with before we get to. Let's look at Psalms 98 and 9. Psalms 98. Psalms 98, verse 9.
It says, for he shall come to judge the earth. He judges the world in righteousness and the people in straightness.
Okay, so he says over here, he judges the world in righteousness and the people in straightness, in uprightness, in equity. Okay. And so again, when we think about his character, we want to think about when we think about his law, again, we want to think about his character and the attributes that walking his character out causes us to manifest. Okay. One more, Proverbs 1, 2 through 4.
For knowing wisdom and discipline, for understanding the words of understanding, for receiving the discipline of wisdom, righteousness, right ruling, and straightness, for giving insight to the simple, knowledge and discretion to the young.
Okay, very good. When we see over here in Proverbs, is talking to you about wisdom, right? Knowing wisdom. When you know wisdom, discipline is something that's incorporated in that, right? And so all of these things, understanding the words, receiving the discipline of wisdom, righteousness, right ruling, straightness, uprightness, right? Giving insight to the simple, knowledge, discretion to the young. All of these things are connected with wisdom, right? And now this is important to what we're talking about, because when we think about wisdom, we're able to also think about the ruach, the spirit, right? How the wisdom and is something that we gain from the ruach hakodesh. Let's look at Isaiah 11. Let's see, 1 through 5.
And the rod shall come forth from the stump of Yeshai, and a sprout from his roots shall be fruitful, and the spirit of Yahweh rests upon him. The spirit of wisdom and understanding, the spirit of counsel and might, the spirit of knowledge and the fear of Yahweh, and shall make him breathe in the fear of Yahweh, and he shall not judge by the sight of his eyes, nor decide by the hearing of his ears, but with righteousness he shall judge the poor, and shall decide with straightness for the meek ones of the earth, and shall strike the earth with the rod of his mouth, and slay the wrong with the breath of his lips. And righteousness shall be the girdle of his loins, and trustworthiness the girdle of his waist.
Okay, very good. So if we look at this working backwards, we see these things that he's clothed with righteousness, right? And righteousness shall be the girdle of his loins, right? The place of when you think about the place of a man's strength, at times we talk about these areas over here that the girdle kind of covers and clothes, right? And so he's over there in these verses over here, which of course are speaking, these are messianic verses over here. And so his strength is covered by righteousness, right? And trustworthiness, right? And the way that he judges is in righteousness and is in straightness or uprightness, right? But it begins over here dealing with the fact that this messianic figure who comes from the seed of David, the spirit of Yah is resting upon him, right? And one of these things that we see over here is this spirit of wisdom and understanding and counsel and might and knowledge and of the fear of Yahweh. All of these things, right? But you could really think about all of these things when you think about actually the spirit of wisdom, or just even the Ruach in its fullness. And so again, when we think about what the spirit does in us as people who are dealing with this new covenant experience, understanding what the spirit is inside of us, the spirit inside of us is this spirit of wisdom, which when we listen to it, when we're led by it, it causes us to operate in a way of straightness and equity and uprightness and justice, right? And all of these things in compassion, right? In loving kindness. And all of these things are the products or the fruits of the spirit. Okay, so when we look at these laws that we're looking at over in the Torah portion, which we didn't start looking at yet, when we look at these things, there's things that we can see over here, which no matter how hard we think about these things, they really don't really even apply to us if we're thinking about them from a literal standpoint. But we have to remember that the thing that the Most High does and is doing with these laws, statutes, and commands, especially in terms of causing his spirit to dwell in us, is he's causing us to walk out the things that these laws, statutes, and commands was causing us to do. Okay, and so when we look at these different laws that we'll look at, there's obviously things that we'll see that are absolutely relevant to us, but then there's other things that we look at where because of the life and because of the life that we live, because of the location that we're in, we're not able to do this or that, but we're able to look at these laws and these judgments and these statutes and these commands, and we're able to see the spirit that's behind them, the thing that he's trying to cause you to do when you do this or that. And that is the point. Okay, one more scripture we want to look at before we look at these at the Torah portion. We want to go to 2 Corinthians 3. Let's look at 1 through 6.
Says, and we are we to begin to recommend ourselves again, or do we need as some letters of recommendation to you or from you? You are our letter, having been written in our hearts, known and read by all men, making it obvious that you are a letter of Messiah, served by us, written not with ink, but by the Spirit of the living Elohim, not on tablets of stone, but on fleshly tablets of the heart. And such trust we have toward Elohim through the Messiah. Not that we are competent in ourselves to reckon any matter as from ourselves, but our competence is from Elohim, who also made us 6, right?
Yes.
Competent as servants of a renewed covenant, not of the letter, but of the Spirit. For the letter kills, but the Spirit gives life.
Okay, very good. So we have to understand over here, first of all, what it is that the new covenant or the renewed covenant, as is said over here in the scriptures version, its main components, right, is the idea of the Most High pouring out his spirit on his people and causing them to walk out his law, statutes, and commandments. And the thing that Paul is explaining over here, and the thing that we are going to be dealing with over, and we look at these various laws over here, is that we have to be able to understand the fact that, looking at the laws of the Most High and understanding the principles that are behind these things, because many times, we live in such a wicked world and wicked times that there's all kind of wickedness that we have that we can't open up the Bible and say, look, it says right here that thou shalt not do this particular wickedness, because it don't even exist. Because we live in these wicked times where we doing all types of foolishness that wasn't even a thing back then. But we're able to look back at these principles and concepts that we see in the scriptures, where when we deal with the spirit of the law, the thing that the law is trying to show us, that we're able to see that even this undefined thing that didn't even exist when this Torah was written, this thing is telling you right here that this new thing that got made up by these wicked men now,
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
This over here applies to your situation.
Right.
And so when we understand this idea between the spirit of the law and the letter of the law, right, we have to understand that when we're dealing with the spirit of the law, we have to understand the principle that these laws are putting forth. And I always make the example of the law that deals with the going up to a bird's nest, and the scripture talks about you not taking the bird and its eggs in one situation, right? If you're gonna go, don't kill the whole bird bloodline, right? Just take some eggs if you want some eggs out, but don't kill the mom and the eggs all at once, right? But that law teaches you to have an understanding and love for the Most High's creation. It shows you the idea of having compassion and loving kindness for things that you just because you have the ability to exercise this or that, you have the ability, the strength, the power to destroy this whole bird bloodline if you wanted to do it, right? But you should be able to have compassion for this thing, right? That the Most High made. And so looking at this command, which the old sages talk about this actually being the least of the commandments, but the message that the least of the commandments gives you is the greatest message that you could ever attain when you think about the spirit, the principle of it in terms of showing you compassion. How much of a better individual would you be if you actually understood and was able to manifest compassion in every situation? Right? People would be accusing you of being like Yeshua all over the place. If that was you, right? And then we talked about this before. People talk about, you think you so holier than thou, right? Compliment me like that all day long. Right, because I want to be a picture of Messiah. So if you catch me walking around in righteousness, then good. Right. So we saying all that just to say, when we look at these commands over here, we getting ready to get into, we want to, of course, deal with them as we could deal with them, but we also want to think about how it is that these things show us these principles and these concepts, the underlying principles that exist with these things. Because again, when we see the spirit of the law, right, this is what we're supposed to be walking in anyway, right? Because we can't even really deal with the law in terms of the letter of the law, where we are. Right, it's an impossibility, right? We can't. There's so many things within it. If we were bound to it, according to the letter, the penalty for that actually is death. Right? It don't matter if we're here, against our will. If we want to say we want to follow the Most High according to the letter, there's things that we need to be doing somewhere else, not here. And so when we think about this idea of comparing these covenants, the so-called old covenant and the renewed covenant, if you think that you're still in the old covenant, I feel sorry for you, because you're guilty. You're guilty of the covenant that you're in. If you admit the fact that if you're in some type of limbo situation outside of the old covenant and outside of the new covenant, I feel sorry for you, right? Because you're still guilty. If you're not a part of the old covenant, but you're not a part of the new covenant, then that's a position of lostness, limbo. The people, the Catholics, they talk about the people that die. Where's that place they go when they die? You gotta get purgatory. You not in paradise. You not in this other place. You in this middle place. It's a waiting room. It's some kind of spiritual waiting room that you're in, right? Yeah. I don't want that. I don't want to be in no holding cell, and especially when I could see in the scriptures where the Most High said that I'm actually out. I've been moved out of the holding cell. So we want to be able to understand what it is that we need to be trying to understand when we look at these so-called Old Testament scriptures, these laws, statutes, and commands, because they help us to understand what the Spirit is trying to do in us. Right? When you go through situations and something happens and you trying to figure out how you should act. Meanwhile, the Spirit's trying to get you to do this or that. But since you don't understand what the character of the Most High is, then you can't see where the Spirit's trying to lead and guide you to, right? But when we understand these laws, statutes, commands, when we understand the purpose of the Ruach HaKodesh on the inside of us, when we understand the direction that the Spirit wants to lead us and guide us, it helps us to move according to the way that the Most High calls for us to move. So we're going to go ahead. We'll just look at these things because we got these rapid fire commands that are going. We're not in the section of Torah that deals with these long narratives of things going on. It's just hitting us verse after verse with precepts, with these commands, right? So let's look over here back in the text of the day, Exodus 22. Let's start off looking at let's read 25 through 27. 25 through 27.
If you do lend silver to any of my people, the poor among you, you are not to be like the one that lends on interest to him. Do not lay interest on him. If you take your neighbor's garment as a pledge at all, you are to return to him before the sun goes down. 27, right?
Yes.
For that is his only covering, that is his garment for his skin. What does he sleep in? And it shall be that when he cries unto me, I shall hear, for I show favor.
Okay, very good. So we look over here where it says, if you do lend silver to any of my people, right? Any of my people. And then over here, it seems especially now the poor among you, right? So any of his people, but then he calls out specifically the poor among you, right? Because, most times somebody who's borrowing is someone who doesn't have, right? And poor people are people who don't have, right? Or you're in a situation where you have a little at a particular time. Either you're in a constant position of poorness, or a particular episode of poorness, right? He said, for my people, right, don't be like the ones that lend on interest to him. Him, of course, is my people, right? So dealing with your people, dealing with Israel, right? We can't be like the way these lenders do and deal with us with these interests, right? If I give you $100, I expect $100 back only. Now, if it's not my people, which he's not talking about the other people, he says specifically my people. So I should assume that I could deal with those people the way they would want to deal with me. Because over here it specifically says, if you do lend to any of my people, which we know that's talking about Israel, right? But we cannot deal with our people the way that the other people deal with us, right? There got to be some type of distinction, right? So if I got a business, if I got a bank, right? If I'm in a position where I'm able to lend to people that are needy, it's just dollar for dollar, not like those wicked places that they put in the poor communities, right? And I'm saying that them places is wicked. I haven't been there in a long time, but I've been there before. Them little payday loan places.
Yeah.
I'll never forget this. I spent $98 and some change to borrow $100. So I borrowed $100, and what I owed back was like $198 and some change. I can't remember what the change was at this time. That's wicked, right?
Devil. You went to the devil.
I did. That's what I did do.
Jeez.
That's what I did do.
Tax you.
Wow. That's almost 100%.
That's like selling your soul. You know you gotta get
Jeez.
No, I'm gonna give you these gifts and I'm gonna give you this fame and fortune. But what I want in return is all that and your soul.
It's something that you can't even pay. What you want back is something that you can't even pay. If I needed $100 to begin with,
I can just have 200
yeah,
to get back after I.
like, but they put those wicked places up in these poor communities,
Yeah.
and why are they there if they ain't making money? Why are they there if they're not functioning? Them places function,
Oh, yeah.
right? And so the Most High saying that, we can't be like that with our people, because again, that's wickedness, right? Like, but it's like when you have these people in a particular situation where you don't have no way out, you got to pay this, you got to pay one person, but just think about what's going on. I owe this other person. If I don't get this money that I owe him, I ain't gonna be able to have X, Y, Z.
Right.
So I'm gonna borrow from somebody else for some some wicked amount of interest, just so I can have this other thing. And now I owe the same money. I'm just transferring my debt from one person to another.
That cycle.
You done added somebody else, right? You added somebody else to that you owe to. So instead of now owing one person, you owe two people until you take his money and give it to the other guy, but you doubled it.
Right.
And what they call that, robbing Peter to pay Paul?
That's exactly what
Guess
that
what it
is.
though? You're robbing Peter to pay Paul, but you still owe Paul $5.
Or you owe him a little more than that.
I'm just saying, you got just enough to give for it, but you're still short.
And so when we look over here at these laws and statutes, commands, we see that this over here is wickedness. It don't even take that to know that it's wicked. When you sit up there and look at your receipt, you should know that that is wicked, right? But this is how they deal with us in wickedness, right? When we saw before, when the Most High, he judges in righteousness and equity, right? And straightness and uprightness, right? These people over here, the way they do it, if you just think about something just like buying a house, you sit up here and get this mortgage on your house. Them people, they want all their money up front before you start paying on the actual loan. You paying all of the interest for that loan first.
Right.
So you're not even paying for it. You're not even paying back what you borrowed.
Yeah.
You paying the interest on what you borrowed first.
Right. Yeah.
Give me that first, and then once you get that knocked out the way, then we'll start dealing with the number that you actually. These people crazy.
I mean, they're going to prove that Israel, we didn't want righteousness. Now, you know, he put these people over us. Look at what we subject to. You know, now we can see though. That's what I like about, you know, us living in the end times. Now this proves the scriptures. This brings perspective because it's like you can see why we should not, you know, do these things because you see the injustice and the wickedness behind it.
Yeah.
He's telling us to do something righteous. Now we ain't want to do it. Now you subject to the wickedness that is a result of it.
Yeah. And we're definitely subject to it, right? There's nothing that you could do. There's nothing you can. There's no way around it, right? We already to the place where he's, because of our separation from him, because of the fact that we done got into all of these evil practices and dabbling in all of this idolatry and all of these things, where he gets us to the place where he causes all of these curses and things to come upon us. Now, you know, we got to deal with all of the consequences and the repercussions of all of these things that, you know, that go along with, you know, this captivity that we're in. And so, you know, but again, dealing with the spirit inside of us, we have to, you know, have a breakaway from these ways of living, right? Because this culture that we live in, it teaches us to operate in wickedness, and we're not even thinking about it in that way. It's just, you know, this is just how things are done. Exactly. That's what you do. If I loan you something, you know, there's interest that's connected to it. Right. That just seems like normal business practices. But if it's against Torah, then that makes it wicked, actually. Exactly. And so, but we have to be able to understand, you know, that these things that seem regular, it don't even seem wicked when you think about it. It's just something that people do. Interest. It's a big deal. That's normal business. The Most High said, no. That's wicked. It's bacon. It's bacon. What's so wrong with that? Exactly. I should be able to put it on a burger. People cook it and it smells delicious. Everywhere. Right? Everybody's doing it. I should be able to just, it's no big deal. But we have to go and see what the Most High said is right and what he said is wrong. Right? And we got to come away from all of these wicked things that the culture that we're embedded in is telling us is normal. When it's not normal, it's abnormal. It's wicked, in fact.
That's one of the reasons why I woke up, you know, coming out of in the college days and school, and it's like once you discover that one thing, like either institutionally or societally is wrong and wicked, then you start diving deeper. You look around like all this is wicked.
Everything.
You start going, you're like, wait a minute. And then don't pick the scriptures. Well, do pick the scriptures up. Yeah. But when you pick the scriptures up and you see how bad it really is, you halfway go crazy. Like, is this serious?
It's a lot. It's a lot.
It's a lot too.
Everything that come out their mouth is a lot. Everything's wrong. Right? So we look over here, right at this next one over here, 26. If you take, now think about this, right? If you take your neighbor's garment as a pledge at all, you return it before the sun goes down. Like, we got this situation between us. And you give me your garment, which when you think about the culture of what's going on, you know, I could go upstairs. I got a closet full of clothes. I got stuff that I ain't wore in years that's up in my closet. All kinds of things. But if you was back in these days and times, you had a thing that you wore. And that's it. You wasn't walking around when you wasn't traveling with suitcases and things.
Talking about the poor.
I mean, even still, like just a regular people, you had a thing that you wore, and then you had like some outer things that you wore over top of that. And then that was your situation. But now I'm in a situation where, you know, I'll go over here, I'll do this and that for you, and just to verify that I'm gonna do it for you, I'm gonna give you this. I'm gonna give you my garment to hold while I go do it. It don't talk about you holding it until the thing is done. It talk about you holding it until the sun goes down for his own purposes, because that's all he got. That's all he got. And so you're not gonna put him out, even though you're kind of doing him a favor. You're doing him a favor. You're doing something for him, right? To the point where he got to give you his covering in order to you know, as a collateral. But you give the collateral back, and it's not even talking about the thing, the pledge being completed. It's talking about his need for the thing that he used as a pledge, which is this cloak, this covering that he had. And then if you wasn't going to do it right, when he cries out, the Most High says going to hear him crying out. But we're not even really even dealing with the idea of the completion of the pledge. Because like if you give me something as collateral, it's like I hold that until the agreement is complete. That's how we think about things. It don't matter if you need it or not. That's the collateral. Like you ain't getting it back until you do what you said you're gonna do, right? But the Most High said no. That's all he got. Give him that thing back when the sun goes down, so that he don't freeze to death. Right? That's the only thing that he got. And so it's teaching us really to really have compassion and think about these people's who you're helping, who you're in a better position than to show compassion, to show loving kindness, to care about what they actually. So you think about the fact that when you, as the lender, right? As the lender, people talk about the fact that if you are in a position to lend somebody money, right? You should be also in the position to forget about that money if need be. Mm-hmm. Right? So if I give you $20, I'm not gonna be like, yeah, and by the way, you got the 20?
You do that.
Right? You got that? Oh, I see you just come out the store. You got that? You got that 20?
Yeah.
Right? But if you in a position really to just forget about that $20, you're not gonna sit up there and be hounding the person or whatever. Yeah. And so, but I'm saying that it's thinking about that person's situation and putting their situation into the equation. Right. And that's what we see when we look at these verses over here. The lender should be concerned that I know this is all he got. I know he gave it to me as collateral, but what's he gonna do when it gets cold out? The way we think about things, it's collateral. You when you done, then you can have it back. That's how we would think about it. You should have never gave me the thing if that was all that you had. Like we could really think about things in that way. That's his fault. What is he?
You know what? My views on it is when we walk in righteousness, Moreh Daniyahu, and we know the scriptures, what it foretells us about taking care of the poor and the sick, et cetera, et cetera. If I'm in a position to lend you some money, most likely I'm going to give it to you in charity. And I'm not going to think you're going to owe me because, and then in that case, even if I do, I might tell Hiskey, just pay me back when you can. You hear that? When you can means I'm not going to bug you about it whenever you're in a position, or I might say if you can. But see, if I open up that door, you ain't going to give it to me anyway because you're going to say if I can. And if you really deceptive, I ain't giving him nothing because he said if I can. So I'm going to tell him I can. So why should I put myself through that if I know I'm in a position to loan it to you or give it to you? I'm going to just give it to you if I'm not going to miss it. But that's the righteous. You feel me? There's a difference between the two.
Yeah. And again, it helps us to understand the place where we are. Because even when we think about it, it goes against kind of just normal things that you would think about. Like collateral is collateral. If we have an agreement, the collateral says that you're going to fulfill the agreement and then you get the collateral back. But then we look at this and weigh it against the Torah. That's wicked. And we don't even think about it as wickedness.
I know.
Because but we think about how is it wicked? You're not concerned about how that collateral affects the person. Right? You don't care about it. It's not part of your equation, but it should be part of your equation. You should be thinking about how these things, how your dealings affect your brother, right? Your neighbor, the one who's a Israelite, right? Because that's what we're talking about over here, how we deal with each other. Right, this is how Israel deals with Israel,
your neighbor.
Right, not about how Israel deals with the other nations, but how Israel deals with Israel. Right, because Israel's who's you gonna have interaction with, right? Not these other places. Like that's the context of what's going on over here with these scriptures, right? You're gonna see your neighbor over here, and he's gonna feel like if it's somebody you don't know. You're not lending to them anyway, right? You don't lend to people that you don't deal with. You lend to people who you deal with, right? And so when we look at this, it's clear to see that the context of what's going on is how Israel deals with Israel, right? And so we can't treat my people, Israel, we can't treat the people of the Most High the way the world, the way the nations treat Israel, right? There got to be a distinction between that.
That's deep that you say that, because I showed you where I got my stuff at. Tracy sold one of my shirts to, I'll say Gentile, for $80. But I only sold for 25 to my people, right?
Yeah.
And so the one guy told me, he was like, well, how come you charge that white man? So I started singing to him in Norfolk. So I said, could it be the melanin? So I was letting them know, well, that's my brothers, man. And I don't know that man. And you might think it's discrimination, but if you think it's discrimination, then I can say, what happened to us for the past 400 years? This is I'm not going to wake that man down, never wake me up when I'm sleeping.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna wake him up and say, yo, man, no, just give me this. No, go ahead. That's what you want to pay.
I think also a way also to think about it again, we think about it in terms of these ways being the character of the Most High. I think what I will probably say is that when we think about, I'm saying that we definitely shouldn't be treating our people in the way that they treat us, but it's not to say that you have a different character dealing with other, like your character is your character, and if you walking in uprightness, it is uprightness, right? And so if we have balance weights and measures and all of that, this is what it is. But I think the greater piece of it is to think about, I guess the first step really is dealing with your people in a way.
Right.
and then when that becomes kind of your normal, you know, that kind of spills out into other areas. But because of our conditioning that we're in, we tend to treat the nations better than we treat our own people.
Right.
And so we we had to even be taught how to just treat our own people, because we're used to treating other people in a way that's better than we treat our own selves, right? And so you got to start with your own people and move out from there. But I think that as when we think about the law, statute, commands of the Most High, the Torah as a character of the Most High, if we're walking in his character, I like how it is when we talk about righteousness or straightness, where it's a straight is a particular direction.
Mm-hmm.
It don't weave back and forth.
So it goes one way.
It goes one way, right? It goes one way. It's not wishy-washy. It don't go back and forth. So my dealings is straight. And so if I'm doing this one way, I'm gonna always do it like that. But I think the thing that we especially have to understand and kind of recondition ourselves is that, and we even do these things unconsciously. If there's a product that is sold to you by the nations,
Mm-hmm.
you trust that thing.
Right.
You trust that thing.
Yeah.
Oh, that's some so-and-so brand. I'll take that in a minute. That's name brand, whatever. Yeah. I don't care how much it costs. I like that.
Yeah, true religion.
But then let it be somebody down the street, Johnny, JoJo's, Rashid and them. And you like, he want how much for that? How much they want for that? I don't want that mess, right? But if it's these other people who so-called known and all of this stuff, you'll go ahead and
want it because they got it.
Yeah. And so we got to actually be kind of reconditioned on how to actually even just deal with each other. But the Torah's doing that. It's showing us how we supposed to.
Everybody else is following that same ordinance and statute, but us.
They do that for their own selves.
Yeah.
They do that for themselves. When you look at these other groups of people, they know how to deal with their own and patronize their own people. They know how to do that. Nobody got to show them that.
Yeah, they just do it.
But they not under.
They're not under
curses either.
Yeah, they're not. Yeah, that is another thing we got to look at too. They're not. So it's kind of hard to do it when you're under the curses.
Okay, let's keep on going over here. Let's see here. Let's look at 28.
Do not revile on Elohim, nor curse a ruler of your people.
Okay, very good. So we look at that over here. We look at now different translations do this differently, right? When you look at this in this particular translation, it has Elohim like in the lower case over here. And so this translation is of the thought process that's really dealing with like a mighty one, some judge, some human figure of authority. Right. So that's why this particular translation has this as like a lowercase Elohim, or I think even if you look at the King James, it might be like a lowercase g. So it's not necessarily, I'm saying the translations that look at it in that way are saying that it's not necessarily talking about like idols or gods.
Right.
But it's giving you kind of the definition of Elohim is a mighty one, or a judge, or some figure that has power and authority. So, and then also when it goes with the second part of it, nor curse a ruler of your people.
Like a king, right?
Yeah, well, yeah. Some human individual that has power and authority,
Yeah, over your,
and
over
so
your people, right?
so it kind of it's a general part here where it seems kind of general.
Mhm.
Do not revile an Elohim,
Right.
nor curse a ruler of your people. So let's look at this over here. So if we look at this here,
I like
let's pull up our. Let's look at our tools over here. Get that there. Looking at 28. Okay, so again, King James does the same thing, right? And
Yeah.
again, this is according to a interpretation of the translators, because some translators would make that capitalized and where it's talking about something else,
Yeah.
right? Where it's talking about like a spiritual thing, right? Because it says this over here, but we got to think about the fact that Elohim, right,
That's the plural.
could mean, let's see, what magistrates, right? A great one, a judge, or a mighty one, right? And so,
Right.
so these are different words, right? To revile. Let's see what this is talking about here. To kalal,
Yeah.
which means to to make light,
To make light up. Yeah.
right? To so when we think about the fact that where we look at the scriptures where it talks about to honor your father and mother,
Mhm.
right? To kavod, right? Now this would be the opposite of that, right? So when we think about to kavod, to make something heavy,
Yeah.
this would be the opposite, to make something light. You know, I don't really care about what you say.
Yeah. Make light of the matter.
It don't
Yeah.
matter what you, whatever. Like, so this individual who has this delegated power or authority, don't sit up there and don't pay them no attention. Actually, pay them attention. It's saying don't revile them. Don't make light of what it is that they, how they're dealing with.
In other
you.
words, heat to what they're saying.
Yes, take heed.
Yeah.
Don't take it lightly. Put some weight on it, right? And then also, so not only that, but so actually, when you look at this, if this is general and this is specific, the ruler of your people is this over here too. So both of these things would apply when talking about your own people, because this is general, right? So you should. So when you think about your people, where you can't just say, well, you could revile your people, but you can't curse them, right? You couldn't look at it like that because this is general, right? So a ruler of your people actually is Elohim, right? He is a judge. So when you're thinking about your people now, you can't revile them or curse them.
Right.
You can't make light of what it is that they saying or arar them. What does that say? To bitterly curse.
Yeah. Especially if you know they're your ruler.
Right. And so again, when we look at this over here, I think here, let's see what some of these, if we compare this verse here, let's see. I don't know how many translations I got. Thou shalt not revile. Now, see, this said no, so that says the gods, which, and this says thou shalt not revile God.
Just singular, yeah.
Right? And so, hold on. Let's see if it gives us this in the Hebrew, which will be Elohim. Hold on, where's it?
Yeah, because it's reading it as it's saying, thou shalt not revile El, or like singular.
Yeah.
But it really not.
I'm looking at this one and I can't even see where this says. It's not even giving you. Sometimes these verses don't correspond with each other. Because I don't even see Elohim in this verse. Hold on. Hisky, go in there and grab that Tanakh out of there. It's that blue Old Testament looking thing. I'm trying to see if it says Ha Elohim. Like how it says the gods right there. And then this verse just it don't have the part, the definite article part. Because that makes a big difference, right?
Yeah.
If it's talking about the Elohim or Elohim in general, right? That's a big difference. And this don't even seem to be that same sentence there. Okay. Let me look in this. Hold on one second here. Let me look at this here. This Exodus 22 and 27. Two 27. Let me see here. I'm trying to look at this in the Hebrew. So that would be this verse here.
I got rulers, judges, define one.
I can't really find it.
The strength. Almost like a pictograph. It's meaning like power. Oath, swear. Mighty strength.
It's kind of goes split down the middle when you look at these different translations, where some of them put it as like Elohim meaning the Most High, and other ones put it as Elohim as in, a individual. But I think, to me, I feel like to think about it in terms of the Most High is obvious. Right? And so that goes without, to me, I feel like that to me goes without saying over there. Right? So it seems like it makes more sense for that to be thinking about an individual with power who's mighty, or a judge or mighty one as an individual, as opposed to that speaking about the Most High, because,
Yeah, I don't.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because again, we think about that word, it's a title. It's not like a name. And so when we think about the Elohim, in terms of the Most High, he is Elohim. But it's not to say that there's not Elohim. That's not him.
Right.
In terms of, because it's a title, right? If we, when we think about individuals can be mighty ones, right? But when we think about the Most High, he is the El of Elohim, right? He's the mighty one of all the mighty ones.
Right. I figured it'd be more of a, I don't know, translations and that. So, I figured it'd be more of a distinction now. If it was just him,
Yeah.
I figured it would. Because again, like you said, go without saying. So
yeah. I think it helps you to understand that it's dealing with individuals with kind of the second part of it. That's dealing obviously with rulers of your people. Right? Okay, let's keep on going over here. Let's see. 29 through the end. 29 through 31. What's that say?
It says, do not delay giving your harvest and your vintage. Give me the firstborn of your sons. Likewise, you are to do with your oxen, with your sheep. It is to be with its mother 7 days. On the 8th day, you give it to me, and you are set apart men to me, and you do not eat any meat which is torn to pieces in the field. You throw it to the dog.
Okay, very good. So we see this kind of deals with two things. When we see 29 and 30 really are dealing with the idea of giving the Most High, giving the Almighty that firstborn, right? The firstborn belongs to Yah. And so he's saying, don't delay, right, in giving him his dues, right? Don't delay in giving the Most High what's owed to him, right? Give me the firstborn. He's talking about of your harvest, right? In that regard, you're not going to delay. And also in the in the idea of your firstborns, right? Of your sons, right? And so then he goes more in terms of the animals, right? They go ahead and they let them be, with their mothers for those 7 days, right? But on the 8th day, you give it to me, right? The same way you think about your sons when they're born, right? On that 8th day, when you put that's mark of the covenant on them, right? You giving them over to the Most High, right? On that 8th day, whenever you cut that extra flesh off of his body, right? That sounds terrible, but that's what it is, right? Also, we see over here in 31 where we have this general idea of being set apart to Yah, right? Again, we thinking about the position that Israel is in, that we are set apart, not just set apart, but set apart unto the Most High. And so he's given us these things, right? In all of our dealings, the way that we deal with each other, right? Especially the way we deal with each other, but the way that we are in general, we are set apart unto Yah, right? And so everything that we do has to exemplify this, right? Our business, right? The way that we deal, right? On a just a secular level, and in terms of the spiritual, quote unquote, religious level, is set apart unto Yah.
Abia Mill said, yeah, like a loan shark. That is right. Dialogue.
Oh yeah. And so that is something that we have to keep kind of at the forefront of our minds. And again, when we think about the idea of what it is that the Spirit is doing in us, the Spirit is always leading us to exemplify our set apartness, right? The Spirit's always leading us to exemplify our set apartness because we're set apart unto Yah. And the Spirit in us causes us to show that, right? And so when you see this 31 over there, you do not eat the meat which is torn to pieces in the field, you throw it to the dogs, right? So if I roll up on some roadkill, I don't seek to eat it. because it's not food to me because it got tore apart.
Yeah.
And so when we think about that again, we think about the spirit of the law. We think about this, the thing that the law is trying to show us, right? Where again, this is something where I have the power and the ability to do many things. But just because I'm physically able to do the thing, don't mean that I should be doing it. And then the Most High through His Torah gives us the boundaries upon which we live our lives. And so when we look at this over here, you know, I mean, I guess certain things when we look at they are kind of self-evident. You know, when I see like some roadkill, I'm not like, that looks good to me. I should go and pick that up and cook it and eat it.
Put in the rotisserie.
Yeah. When I see it, it don't look like food to me, right? But that could just be because of the culturally the way I've been raised. If I was somewhere outside of like normal cultural things, and I'm hungry, and then there's some food that's over there that's still warm, it just died. Potentially, I could be like, I'm about to touch this up and take it and cook it up. But in generally speaking, again, it's something that I am able to do. I'm able to do it, but it's not inside of the parameters that the Most High set for us to be doing. Therefore, it's not. And the same thing is true when we think about like unclean foods. I can literally go fishing and pull up a catfish and I can literally eat it. It's not like some kind of force field that's stopping me from doing it. Well, there is. It's the boundaries that the Most High created. Right?
Yeah.
And so there's a kind of a limiter in my mind that lets me know what's food and what's not food, where I know just because I'm able to do something don't mean that I should be doing it.
Right.
And so when we look at this over here, this is something that when we think about things, you know, there's things that we're physically able to do. But because of the Most High, the classifications that He's made for us, it keeps us from doing this. And right. And so when we don't sit up here and eat meats that's torn into pieces in the field. Right? We eat meats that's been killed properly in a proper way.
Right.
Right? The blood taken out of it. Right? And that's the stuff that we eat, not something that we just roll up on and find there where we don't know how it got to be like that. I think that, you know, this helps us to think about, you know, going to the grocery store even. It seems like we should be careful about the things that we eat, the meat that we eat, and know that, you know, that meat was killed properly and taken care of properly, because we don't know if it's actually meat for us. Because again, we think about this verse over here, it don't give you everything, but at the same time, it is giving it to you, because we know that when the Most High is talking about eating meat, He's talking about actual thing that you regard as food. Even like when we think about the scriptures in the New Testament that people want to talk about, where, Paul or Peter and this one's talking about eating this or that, or praying over something and it's good.
Yeah, unclean, not clean, just because.
He can't be talking about something that's not classified as food to you.
Right.
We can't look at that and think that he's talking about bacon or shrimp or mussels or something, because that's not something that we would classify as food.
Right.
It has to be something that's in the category of food for us first, in order for us to even think about it in that way. Even though we can't see that in the context, but in the greater context, that's how we would have to think about the thing. Because he tells us what's food for us and what's not. And so for us to sit up there and just have some type of crapshoot and just pray over it and hope that it's made clean for us, that's not the thought that's there, because we have this greater context that helps us to understand what's food and what ain't food, what's clean and what's unclean. And so inside of those confines, and that's a whole other thing.
Exactly.
But again, if we not sitting up here looking at the scriptures the way that they're supposed to be viewed, then we can take these things and make them mean any number of things, right? But again, when we look at this 31st verse, to me, it really just it especially in the fact, the way that it begins in terms of being set apart unto the Most High. And so we can't let the things that seem lawful for us to do cause us to step outside of the laws that the Most High has created, because of the fact that we are set apart unto him, right? He has boundaries. Was you gonna say something?
Yeah, I wanted to add. We know that too. Okay, first of all, it's talking about do not eat any meat, so clearly it's talking about a clean meat. But just to throw a little bit of science into it, because like I said before, the other few sessions we had, now science proves the Most High. So like when an animal or something dies, within 24 hours, it starts developing worms and all these things in it. You know what I'm saying? That's when the nature or the ecosystem will start to deteriorate to get it out of here. So imagine if this law wasn't in place, say Israel is a nation or a community, just a scenario, and all of us start getting stuff and bringing it into the community, we all get sick. We're supposed to be set apart. So this is like the Most High putting this layer in to be like, hey, you set apart. Like this is protecting the whole community from disease and all other things. And if you think about it, the end, he said, throw it to the dogs.
Yeah.
Dogs got a different digestive system that they can eat raw meat and nothing happened to them.
Yeah.
So it's like the Most High is looking out. He's put it's all there,
Yeah.
But see, now today, the Most High is proving every day,
Right.
as we can observe the things, that he says not to do. Not just be like, oh, well, he just said to do it, not to do it just cause. Now we can understand why he said not to do it.
Yeah.
So he give us instructions on how to eat. He let us know what's going to be spoiled and all kind of stuff. He just give us the whole rundown.
He knows.
Which I was explaining to my son about how they be butchering these animals these days and not doing it according to the custom of the scripture. That's like a deer getting hit by a car in the street on the road. That way they take a sledgehammer and bust these cows upside the head, and like you always said, Maria Doniyahu, the adrenaline flows through the body, and it creates a different toxic sort of thing that we eat once it's placed in the grocery store.
Yeah.
True. Which is why we must pray over that stuff.
Okay, let's keep on going over here. Let's look at the next chapter and let's read the first 7 verses here.
So do not bring a false report. Do not put your hand to the wrong to be a malicious witness. Do not follow a crowd to do evil, nor bear witness in strife, so as to turn aside after many, to turn aside what is right. Do not favor a poor man in his strife. When you meet your enemy's ox or his donkey going astray, you shall certainly return it to him. When you see the donkey of him who hates you lying under its burden, you shall refrain from leaving it to him. You shall certainly help him. Do not turn aside the right ruling of your poor in his strife. Keep yourself far from a false matter, and do not kill the innocent and the righteous, for I do not declare the wrong right.
That is powerful.
The Most High said, I do not declare the wrong right. And so we sit up here. It's crazy the place that we live in. It's a whole bunch of declaration of wrong being called right in this place that we live in over here.
Yeah.
And again, we look at these things, and the Most High is telling us what right is and what wrong is. Right? It's not something that's obscure. We know what's right. We know what's wrong. Right? And the Most High is saying that we have a distinction. But let's go up here, because there's a few things we want to look at over here. We go back up to the first verse over here, this idea of bringing this false report, right? Do not put your hand with the wrong to be a malicious witness, right? And so there's a lot to think about that, because when we think about, first of all, it's possible for you to give a false report and not even know you're doing it if you don't know the whole matter. Right. So if you don't know all of the ins and the outs of the situation, then you probably should just be quiet, because it's possible for you to give a false report. And this could go both ways. You could know the whole situation and have some type of bias into the situation and give a false report. But I'm saying that there's another way that you could give a false report by not knowing all of the facts, right? And talking about it when you don't know. So it's better for you just to shut your mouth, your mouth, your MOUF, right? Instead of giving a false report. It said, do not put your hand with the wrong to be a malicious witness. But how do you know what's right or wrong if you don't know all of the things? So you got to know what all of the things are before you can enter yourself into the situation.
Like investigate the matter.
You got to.
Yeah.
You got to. You can't just, somebody can't just come around and then offer some information to you, and then you say, oh, that's what they did?
Right.
And then now you telling somebody else, you know what so-and-so did?
Yeah.
What's the name? First, that's how you start off. What's the name said that so-and-so did this, that, and the other thing. Right? Now you done did it. You didn't gave a false report because you don't even know the whole situation.
You put a gun to that man.
And just in you not knowing, that's malicious in itself, because you didn't never do the due diligence to figure out who did what.
Yeah.
And so I'm saying we could really look at this both ways. Of course, the obvious is you having all the knowledge and having some type of a bias and then purposefully giving a false report. But the other side of that is you not doing your due diligence to know all sides of the matter and just picking a side and saying and going whatever.
So that would be a form of favoritism.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm saying it could be the favoritism, or it could just be about you.
Bias.
Or I'm saying outside of bias, not getting all of the information. Like this to say, like I said, if somebody just come and tell you what somebody did, and then you just co-signing on that based on somebody telling you something without you going and finding out all of the facts of the matter.
So even if you think it's not malicious, it still falls into the category of being malicious.
Right, because of your neglect.
Right.
Because you didn't go the extra step to find out all of the things.
That would be indirect.
So I'm saying you made it be malicious by you not doing the research, investigating.
You know what? I remember when I was in the House of Crossroads years ago. It was a wild program, right? But something I learned out of that was very proficient. We can sit at this table. Then I can whisper in your ear a story. You give it to the next one. By the time it comes back to me, it's not the story that I told. You know, because people like to add to it. The more they go, they follow the tone of the crowd, especially when the crowd is against an individual. They'll start adding to it to fit into the tone.
Or it's not always adding. Sometimes it's subtracting.
Yeah.
It could be one simple word.
Yeah.
Just how we just looked at that other verse where some scriptures said the God, or other one just said God. Right. Well, that's a huge difference if you just left out the definite article.
Yeah.
Right? And so it could be adding or it could be subtracting, but either way is false. And then I'm saying that it seems that the thing that makes it malicious is you not doing that due diligence to figure out what's what and making sure that the thing that you're standing by is something that you actually should be standing by. Do not put your hand with the wrong. You got to know what the wrong is before you put your hand to it. It seems like that part's implied. Do not put your hand with the wrong. It could be either way. If you know it, put your hand with the wrong. But if you don't know, you got to see to figure out what's right or wrong to know if you could put your hand to it or not. You got something over there? I see you got the.
Oh yeah.
Got that look on his face.
Wisdom was what do you call it? Ecclesiasticus.
Here, let me pull it up.
Ecclesiasticus.
Ecclesiasticus.
Ecclesiasticus. What is it?
11. Verse 7, 8, and 9.
Okay.
Blame not before thou hast examined the truth. Understand first, then rebuke. Answer not before thou hast heard the cause. Neither interrupt men in the midst of their talk. Strive not in a matter that concerneth thee not, and sit not in judgment with sinners.
Oh, wow.
Exactly. Right. And so when we look at this, right, and we look at this, what this is saying over here, that's talking about this whole idea. How can I know not to put my hand with the wrong if I never examine what the truth of the matter is to say if it's wrong or not, to know if I'm supposed to put my hand in it in the first place? Right? We look at these scriptures and it say what it say, but there's things that can be deduced that we need to understand going in. If I look at this scripture and it's saying, don't put your hand with the wrong, well, how do I even know if it's wrong? If I never looked at the ingredients. You know what I'm saying? I don't know. I'm just somebody that's greedy because everything that I think about got to do with food.
Yeah.
Huh? I'm saying if I don't know what the ingredients is, how am I supposed to know if I'm supposed to eat it or not? I got to know what's in that. If I go to somebody's cookout, y'all put meat in the greens? What kind of meat? You know what I'm saying? I'm not going to sit up there and say, Hiskey, eat them greens over there before I say, first, is them greens food to me or not? Right? I got to investigate the matter before I go and propagate these greens over here. I see you don't put pepperoni in your macaroni and cheese. That's an unorthodox move, but I'm sure it might be good. What kind of pepperoni is that? Is that turkey pepperoni? Oh, okay,
Yeah,
good.
yeah.
Okay, good. Yeah. Hiskey, go ahead, get you some of that. Right? I've investigated, I've examined the thing first. And then now I could say, I'm not gonna just look at it and be like, man, don't eat that. They got meat in it. That's some ham hock. Meanwhile, it's some smoked turkey or something, right? I'm so greedy, right? I can't stop talking about food. But I'm saying this, right? We have to be able to examine the matter before we could talk about it. If you never examined it, be quiet. If you never did the due diligence to figure out what's what, you can't talk about it. You don't even know. You just know based on what somebody said, which we just talked about the idea. If I sit up here and say something to somebody in a big circle, by the time it gets back to me, somebody done added or subtracted, whether they did it purposefully or not. And so we have to be able to do things rightly and exactly. And we do this by knowing what it is that we're putting our allegiance or alliance to, right? And so the scriptures is clearly telling us to know what we getting ourselves into before we sit up here and take sides with it with a matter, right?
If it don't have nothing to do with us, then maybe you should just stay outside of it. That's what it said.
Yeah, ain't no maybe involved.
And that's what that verse said.
If it don't got nothing to do with you, just don't even get involved in it,
Nothing.
right? If it's saying do not bring a false report, you have to be able to know whether it's true or false in order to do anything with it. And so it don't say study or investigate over here. That's something that's implied. And then again, when we look at these other witnesses, right, it helps us to understand the thing that this scripture is getting us to understand, which is, again, we got to know and investigate the truth to know what it is that it's trying to say to us, right?
Right.
And the same thing is true when we look at this second verse. Do not follow a crowd to do evil. But you got to know where they're going, if it's evil or not, to say whether you're going to follow them or not.
Right. Man.
You know, when we was back in school, like if there was like a fight or something over there,
we
run over there.
Such
People start running, then you trying to look and see what's going on, and then let it be one of your buddies or something that's fighting. You gonna jump in and help. Don't know if he right or wrong. It don't matter.
Yeah.
That's my boy. I'm in there too. Like, you don't know what he did. He could be 100% wrong, but you in it, right? Following the crowd to do evil, right? You got partiality and judgment involved, right?
Yeah.
You got all of these things that you're doing that's wicked. But because of the fact that that's not how we think about things, you know, that's what we do. So the Most High got sit up here and show us how to act. Yeah. We're quick to jump on a bandwagon. The people at large in the place where we live at have jumped on this bandwagon just because of the fact that the name of what they are is something that it makes sense. Like what they're called is something that I can stand by.
Ain't that voice in the form of calling evil good and good evil?
It is that. But when people don't do that due diligence,
right,
we sit up here and we align ourselves with certain groups because the facade of that group is something that's good.
Right. We can learn a lot from Boys in the Hood, then. Remember when Trey was in the car and they was going to get the guy and he said, "Man, pull over, man. Let me out, man. Let me out. Do not follow a crowd to do evil." I guess he was reading the scripture and it was hitting him in his head.
Yeah.
Let me out.
Yeah.
You know?
And we got to learn from that. Just because there's a crowd, there's a lot of people moving in a particular direction.
Right.
That don't mean that you're supposed to be moving in that direction.
Right.
Just because there's a bunch of people doing it.
That is true.
I wanted to add something.
Go ahead.
I remember being in elementary school, and we were walking home. You know, everybody walks home together, and my sister kept throwing rocks at this one girl. She was in my grade level, 2 years year difference. Kept throwing it. This girl finally turns around and starts hitting on my sister. Everyone's like, "Why aren't you jumping in it?" I remember it so vividly. It's so clear. I'm like, she was throwing rocks at her. Like, why would I? Like, that's what she was. It's just like one of those things. It's like,
Yeah.
I'm not jumping into something that you caused for yourself. I
Yeah.
would never throw rocks at anybody.
Yeah.
Why would I start get my face all scratched?
Yeah.
Because it's
Yeah.
something. I don't care if she's my sister or not, but it's just I'm not. Yeah, it's just we don't go along with the crowd.
Mm-hmm.
But just think about like how Israel would not have even made it in the wilderness if they didn't have this command.
Man.
Because every day something probably happened.
Mm-hmm.
Every day.
That
Yeah.
would have caused a problem. That would have caused a faction.
I mean, when you think about it, that's really how the Most High's word came true to say that none from this generation gonna make it into the land. Because you had enough people that followed after the crowd to do evil that ended up getting themselves killed off, where finally they all got killed off, and it was time. You know, but that's how we are. That's how people move. We see a particular movement, and it's so widespread. You know, and again, without doing that due diligence to know whether it's false or whether it's true, you know, we just say, "Oh yeah, look at all these people. There's so many people doing it. It must be something that's right. I'm gonna attach myself to this. I'm gonna run right where they run into." And we have to be able to look and know, you know, what's right and what's wrong, so we know what to actually put our hand to. It says, "Nor bear witness in a strife so as to turn aside after many, to turn aside what is right." And again, it don't talk about this part over here, but it's implied. I gotta know what's right in order to turn to or from it. So we got to look into matters before we sit up there and speak on a matter, or before we align ourselves to a matter. And when you don't do that, guess what you're doing? You sinning. It's sin. This is sin over here. If somebody sit up here and come and tell me something, I can't sit up here and say, "Oh yeah, okay, I'm done with them." If you do that, guess what you just did right there? You sinned. Because you never did the due diligence to figure out if what was said is right, if it's true or not. You just listened. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And so again, we look at these scriptures. The scripture don't literally say, "Thou shalt not listen to what somebody says," and then co-sign on it. And it don't say that, right? But it's saying that. That's what it's saying, because how do you know if something is evil if you didn't never investigate to see that it was evil or not? It just say, "Do not follow a crowd to do evil." But I got to be able to know whether that thing is evil or not, because the scripture said, "Don't follow the crowd to do evil." So I have to do the due diligence to understand if it's evil, to know if I'm able to follow the crowd or not. If nobody never investigated what these Black Lives Matter people was saying in their
That's what I was thinking.
in their open belief statements,
Yeah.
they sit up there and describe for you fully what they're all about. They hide nothing. They let you know what their full agenda is, but ain't nobody checking for it. Once somebody start checking for it and start publishing it and letting it be known, I can't even say publish because they published it. They didn't hide it. But once people started investigating and looking to see, now they don't even have that up no more. Now they hid. Now they hid their agenda, right? Now they don't want you to know what it is because it's taken away from their from the masses of people that are there to follow them, right? And so when we think about these things, right, we can't just go be out here blindly following people, things, what people have to say about things or what have you, because the scriptures is telling us over here that we need to investigate.
Yeah,
that's what them scriptures is saying right over that we just read over here in Exodus, and then we go over to the Apocrypha. It bears witness to those concepts, right? It bears witness to those principles that are underlying in the Torah. The Torah told us, right? The Torah told us, and then we as witness in these other places, something that we already saw in the Torah. If we look at the Torah and investigate it to know what it's trying to say, right? That's what we're doing over here. So again, we start finding out these things that we do all the time that's actually sin. If you sit up here and believe what somebody says to you about somebody, and you then never check to see if it was the truth or if it was not, you sinned. You need to repent.
One of my family members got mad at me and told me I think I know everything and I'm better than other people. Then had nerve to say, "Why do you investigate every doggone thing?" Huh? Because I'm supposed to. I'm not supposed to just take her word because she's my sister or my brother. Right is right and wrong is wrong. I don't care who's telling the truth. I rock with the truth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, so what else we look at here? Verse 3. Do not favor a poor man in his strife. So again, thinking about partiality, right? Uprightness. Just because somebody's poor and just because they already got problems that's connected with their poorness, I can't look at them and say, "Oh, it's so sad," right? They must be right because they're poor, right? I have to do things uprightly and operate in equity, right? Operate in uprightness and straightness, right? We look at these scriptures over here, don't say that, right? But again, these things are implied because how it's talking about partiality over here. So if I'm on your side simply because you're poor, then that's wrong. Because I didn't check to see what your actual side is, if I even should be on it or not. I'm just sympathizing with you because you're because of your status or whatever.
Yeah, that reminded me when I went to buy me a Black Lives Matter shirt, and I was supporting it, and I started investigating it, and was going to donate a couple of dollars, and it took me to the Democrat page, Blue Chip or something like that, and I was like, hold up, they was using Black Lives Matter as a front to get money to further their campaign.
Yeah.
And so I said, whoa, I'm on the wrong team.
And it's so easy to do, especially with something like that, especially with the causes that they align themselves with. You know what I mean? No real person wants to silently stand behind like police brutality.
Yeah.
Right. And so they got behind that thing. And that's the thing really that's pushing themselves forward, not letting their real agenda be known. And then they get to this huge status and have all of these followers, where most of the people actually don't know what their a real agenda actually is.
Right.
They just think about the thing that's in the front, this police brutality thing.
Right.
And to the point where, you know, if you so called like pro-black, so-called, you know, people sit up here and act like you don't even you lose your black card, so to speak, if you not with them.
Yeah, you sell out.
They the ones that's at the forefront of blackness to these people who ain't really investigated and knowing the truth behind the matter. But again, we look at the Torah. The Torah is telling us that this is how we deal with things in general. Like, you can't just sit up here and just be blindly following after this or that, because you got to know whether you're able to put your hand to it or not.
You know what comes behind the contradiction? I'm helping a white elderly couple come across the street on 8th Avenue in Homestead, right? The girl slows down and waving like, go ahead. But as she rode past, you know what she said to me? You sell out. You want to help them cross the street. I was like, well, didn't you stop for them? You know what I mean? I was like, what? These people lost their mind, man. They had no compassion.
Yeah. And again, when we think about the idea of compassion, we think about the idea that the Most High's law, statutes, commandments, his Torah is the character of the Most High humanized. When we understand that, and we see that these laws are trying to get us to behave in a certain way, right? It's not necessarily about the letter. It's about what it is that it's trying to get you to do. This 4 and 5, when you look at this, when you meet with your enemy's ox or his donkey going astray, you shall certainly return your enemy, though.
Your enemy, yep.
Now, naturally, when you think about that's your enemy.
Yeah.
I don't care. I'm laughing. This ox got free. Good. That's what he get.
Yeah.
My enemy, right? That's what he deserves.
Yeah,
to lose his
I
ox.
turned the little dog into some guy that they live in Polish Hill. Matter of fact, you know, and the guy was known to be some racist type dude. So they say. You feel me? So they say. Now he might have said something racist to one person out of being angry, but I know that when me and my ex-wife, we took this little dog, I don't know what it kind of was. We seen the picture. We called him, told him I bring it to him. He was so elated, you know. That he was like basically praising me for it. And I'm telling him, no, it's okay, you know. So other people will consider him the enemy.
Yeah,
you know. But I was just doing my due diligence.
Yeah, and so again, when we think about what these scriptures, what these laws is getting us to do. It's one thing to just, you know, to have something happening to some random individual where, you know, you don't really care one way or another. But over here, it's specifically dealing with your enemy. This is somebody who's against you. What this word in the Hebrew mean?
Which one?
Let's see here.
Enemy. Ooh.
Adversary. Principle of hating.
Principle of hating.
Enemy, foe. Like, this ain't even about, it's not even a neutral situation. Right? This is your adversary.
Mm-hmm.
This is your sworn enemy. This is Esau over here. This is who you look at, and there ain't no goodness that you can find in them.
Wow.
It's your adversary.
You ever heard the cliche, kill him with kindness?
I'm trying to see what this is over here. I gotta pull this up. Let's see here. I want to see what that root is. Enemy. Oh, it is 340. To hate as one of an opposite tribe or party, be hostile, to be an enemy, right? So again, you saying something bad that's happened to your adversary, the one that you are against, and then but you're able to help the person. You're able to help the person out of this problem that has happened to your enemy. It said when you meet your enemy's ox going astray, you shall certainly return it. I wonder what that do. Let's see. Surely bring it back to him. Look what it do. So bring it back. Shuv. Return. You shall surely bring it back to him. So there ain't no doubt. Huh? To return. Return. Right. You shall surely bring it back. So it's not it's not saying it would be nice if you did that.
You're supposed to, surely.
Like if you see something,
right?
if you see this situation going on with your enemy, when you see the donkey of him who hates you.
Right.
What version is that? The scriptures version say, when you see the donkey of him who hates you. This person don't got zero love for you. In fact, he hates you.
Right.
Surely, it says, you shall help him.
You don't know what could come out that though, you know? That act of kindness can go forward. You might cause that person to change a character, specific character. You never know. Because y'all blesses whom you bless, heart and the horse whom you bless, have mercy on whom you bless.
I'm saying that all that is absolutely true what you're saying. But I'm adding to that to say that the Most High not dealing with the repercussions of what might happen.
Yeah, he doesn't. Yeah.
He telling you what you supposed to do.
Right.
And it could end up that he stopped hating you, or he could just keep on hating you.
Yeah. Or he might just take you out right there.
He might use that opportunity. I said the next time I saw you, I was gonna kill you. This is the next time, right here.
Yeah.
But the Most High ain't dealing with that, right? He dealing with what you're responsible for.
Instructions, right?
So we got to think about the way that we deal with the instructions from the Most High.
Right.
He is requiring of us something. And what happens as a result of that is of no consequence. He's not talking about that.
Right.
He's talking about what is required of you.
It's like I think about sometimes when we've gone different places, and there's just I don't know. Like I think about like when we go down to Tennessee for the Feast of Tabernacles, sometimes just different places, and people are a different kind of way. You know what I mean? Maybe it's just like at Aldi where you get the cart and they bring the cart to you and they don't take the quarter back.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like where people do kind acts for you or selfless acts. And, if you think about if you went to the people of the Most High, you went to their community, how would they act, especially towards each other?
Mm-hmm.
They're not thinking about themselves. They're thinking about the other person more than themselves. So this is how they treat an enemy. How much more so do they treat a friend?
Right.
How much more so?
How much more so?
And so
if I do this for my enemy, I'm definitely doing this for somebody else.
When we think about what Yeshua said, right? When you think about the idea of loving your neighbor as yourself, right? When you think about that, dealing with people in a way that you would want for them to deal with you.
Yeah.
Is that how we always keeping it honest, the way we deal with people sometimes is just bare minimum. I give you the minimum requirements sometimes, just because I don't even want to even deal with you like that, right? But the Most High is calling for us not to be dealing with people that way.
Right.
He's asking for us, he's declaring for us to deal with people the way we would actually want for somebody to. If I knew that person over there that sat up here and took my stuff out of my car like that, I would want for somebody to get my stuff from him and give it back to me. If they seen him and they was able to do it. But we don't really operate like that nowadays. We kind of just turn our eyes away from things, right? If I was to see some strangeness going on nowadays, where I don't even know who's supposed to be over there next door or not. Somebody could potentially be not supposed to be over there because I don't have a relationship with my neighbor. I don't know if them people supposed to be there or not. Somebody could pull up with a U-Haul truck and empty the whole place out, and I just be like, how they moving? Right? But let that happen to be, and I'm trying to figure out why nobody call the police or nothing. Why didn't nobody come over and try to stop her from doing that? And so it's when we look at these scriptures over here and we look at these laws the Most High has given out to us, his people, he's causing for us to behave in the way that he behaves. He's causing us to mimic his character, right? When we see some wrong, when we see some injustice, when we see something that some wrong that needs to be right and is completely inside of our power to do so, you're supposed to be doing it. Not just looking and saying, oh man, I know whose that is. That's messed up. He got it.
I'm not saying like, oh man, that dude's in the ditch.
That's messed up.
I'm just gonna walk by.
That's messed up that he's in the ditch and just be, that's it. Oh, that's messed up that his dog is stuck over there. Oh well. Right? We supposed to actually have action to helping those that are in need. And again, we look at the law in general and how much it talks about the orphan and the widow. Again, even over here, dealing with helping those that are not able to help themselves. That's what the orphan is. That's what the widow is. That's what this man is who done lost his ox. He's not able to help himself. He don't know where it's at. It's lost to him, but to you it's found, right? The poor person don't got money. It's about helping those that not able to help themselves, but you're able to help them though, right? The Torah is teaching you how to be. Didn't the Most High help you? Didn't know how to help yourself. You was just walking around here in gross iniquity till Yeshua snatched you up. You didn't even know that you needed help. You didn't know how to help yourself or anything like that till he came around and helped you. The poor person who needed to be to have some grace extended. How people sit up here and talk about the Torah don't got no grace, and we just sat up here and looked at how the scripture talk about you giving the collateral back to the person before the deed's even done. If that ain't grace, I don't know what is.
You're not gonna get that from a bank.
Nah. Their grace period is a grace period. It's a period of grace that got a start and a finish. But after that, you get the full situation after that plus some, right? Yeah. And so again, we have to understand how it is that the Most High moves so that we can know how we supposed to move. Okay, let's keep on going over here. Let's see over here. We went down to what? Verse. Let's read 8 and 9. Hold on. 8, 9, and 10. Oh, hold on. 8 through 11. Hold up.
Says, and do not take a bribe, for the bribe blinds the seeing one, and twist the words of the righteous. And do not oppress a sojourner, as you yourselves know the heart of a sojourner, because you are sojourners in the land of Mizraim.
Hold on. Let's just stop right there. 8 and 9. Do not take a bribe. Then they got to sit up here and tell you why. For a bribe blinds the seeing one and twists the word of the righteous. When you in a position where you're able to make decisions or these type of things, right? It helps you in your decision making to go with those who actually do stuff for you. We think about a bribe as like money. I wonder what this word actually, gifts, right?
Yes.
It don't gotta always be. Oh, it says gift in the King James, donation, gift, present, reward, right? And so if somebody always giving you stuff, it's easier to side with that one. But it's making this true, right? For a bribe, a gift, a present blinds the seeing. And it twists the words of the righteous. It causes you, the one who receives the gifts or the bribe or the presents, it causes you to kind of lean more heavily to the one who's always gifting you, who's always presenting you with things, right? So it's saying don't take a bribe. And so, when we think about the idea of being in a position where where you rule over things, where you have influence in certain situations, right? There has to be a certain distancing of yourself from those that are ruled or judged or that receive your your words of righteousness because of this whole situation over here. If you the one who always have the gifts, how I'm gonna sit up here and say something bad to you or talk to you a certain kind of way because you always got the good stuff.
That gives a favor towards the rich.
It does.
Rich people, if you're poor,
Yeah.
you want to be on the receiving end. You're not on the giving end.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and you not able to ever be on the other side. So I guess when you think about it in that way, the poor never is the one who benefits from this more so than the rich because they are always the ones who even able to give a bribe. And so again, we think about the kind of the ongoing theme of what is even being spoken over here. A constant in this whole situation is the poor, is the one who's not able to take care of themselves by themselves, the one who don't even have the opportunity to offer a bribe, right? A gift, right? And so the Most High is always looking out for, again, he's looking out for the one who's not able to look after his own self. And then again, these things are not always something that's intentional, right? It's not even as if I mean, it could be. It definitely could be. When we look at these crooked politicians and things, they all about bribes. They all about who got the most money, right? Those are that's how they operate like that, right? But I'm saying it don't always got to be about that. It could be unintentional, where you just give a certain extra little something to the one who's the nicest to you, right? The one who got the most gifts for you, right? This is just wisdom over here, right? This is just wisdom, where the Most High is letting you know that He's not even saying to not let it affect you. He's saying don't take the gift in the first place. He's not saying don't allow the gifts to cause you to be swayed. He's saying the gifts is going to cause you to be swayed, so don't take it. Right? And then we look at verse 8, right? We see this over and over again in terms of the fact that the Most High has to remind Israel, he has to remind us where we came from, right? As an oppressed people, as an oppressed sojourner, don't oppress the sojourner. Right? So we can never get to the place where we want to sit up here and do to those do to others the thing that was done to us. Don't forget where you came from. Don't get so high, don't get so uppity, don't feel so much about yourself to forget that you once was at the bottom. Don't sit up here and forget that you used to be at the bottom. So don't sit up there and treat them the way that they treated you. Right? You know what oppression is like. You know that already. So don't sit up there and be trying to get no get backs over here, right? Okay, let's see what else we got over here. If we look at okay, let's read down through 19, starting at verse 10.
It says, and for 6 years you are to sow your land, and shall gather its increase. But the 7th year you are to let it rest, and shall leave it, and the poor of the people shall eat, and what they leave, the beasts of the field eat. You do the same with your vineyard and your olive yard. 6 days you are to do work, and on the 7th day you rest, in order that your ox and your donkey might rest, and the son and your female servant and some owner be refreshed. And in all that I have said to you, take heed, and make no mention of the name of other mighty ones. Let it not be heard in your mouth. 3 times in the year you are to celebrate the festival. To me, guard the festival of Matzah 7 days. You eat unleavened bread as I commanded you at the time appointed in the new moon of Abib. For in it you came out of Mizraim, and do not appear before me empty-handed. And the festival of the harvest, the first fruits of your labors, which you sow in the field, and the festival of the ingathering, and the outgoing of the year, when you have gathered the fruit of your labors from the field. 3 times in a year, all your males are to appear before the master Yahweh. Do not slaughter the blood of my slaughtering of leavened bread, and the fat of my festival shall not remain until morning. Bring the first of the first fruits of your land into the house of Yahweh your Elohim. Do not cook a young goat in its mother's milk.
Okay, very good. So we look at these over here, we see again, we look at these things, these laws that got to do with the land, like the land rest, for instance. Look who it benefits. It benefits the poor, right? It benefits those that aren't able to um, provide for their own selves, right? So when we think about these things, yes, it's good for the land. Of course, it's good for the land to be able. And again, the land really is kind of the servant, right? The land is the one really that's serving you, right? You're using the land and receiving from the service of the land, right? So the land got this time where it's continually serving you, right? And then even the land has this time of rest, this time of replenishing, the time when it's able to recover from all of the work that it was put in, that it has put in over the time, right? And so again, we look at these laws, statutes, and commands, we learn all of these things, right? We learn these things, which again are recurring themes that the Most High is giving to us in terms of how He wants for us to be able to behave, right? What it is that He requires of each and every one of us, right? To have a heart and a mind for those that aren't able to do for themselves, right? The land is something that's worked, right? The land is worked. You work the land. The land can only benefit if you allow it to do so. And so we see over here where, again, the Most High does for those that are able to do for themselves, right? He also talks about the servant, right? In verse 12, 6 days you do your work, and on the seventh day you rest, in order that your ox and your donkey might rest, and the son of your female servant and the sojourner be refreshed, right? So you not working, and those that work for you ain't working either, right? It's not like you rest on the sixth day, but then your servants, they keep on working, right? Nobody working, right? I thought this was interesting over here, verse 13, where it says, "And all that I have said to you, take heed." Pay attention to all that stuff, right? And then he say, "Make no mention of the name of other mighty ones, and let it not be heard from your mouth," right? And so this is another one when you think about how we look at this and how we are able to understand this, because some people might look at this and say that you're not supposed to even say out of your mouth the names of these other mighty ones. But we have to be able to look at this in terms of the context of the scripture, right? He just got finished giving us all of these law, statutes, and commands in terms of these things that are helping us again to transform our character based on the manifestation of his character, right? And so when we look at this thing over here, it has to do with, it got a great deal to do with this part over here. "And in all that I said to you, take heed," right? He wants for you to have your actions be connected to the things that he have prescribed for you, not with the way that these other places that are connected to these other deities would do. Because, and again, we're we see the effects of we're living the effects of Israel. This says make no mention, but guess what this word means over here? Let's click on this. Make no mention, low. Hold on, this is low, which is no, but this word here is zakar, which is a word that means really to remember, right, or to memorialize, right, or to be mindful of, or to bring, call, or come, or to keep, or to put in remembrance. And so when we think about the idea of putting to remembrance the name or the fame or the character of these other gods, it's more than you just actually saying the name of some other god, right? It's about you putting these other gods and all of the things that go along with these other gods, putting these things into action, right? When you the other week we talked about the idea of making an oath, and then that oath be something that you repeat and say the 7 times to kind of swear it, right? And so when we practice, when we rehearse, right, when we put into when we manifest the ways and deeds and actions of these other deities, these other mighty ones, these other Elohim, right? It is idolatry, right? It's spiritual idolatry. Right? And so when we get into these other things, again, it causes us to behave like these other nations, and he's given us these laws and statutes and commands and judgments so that we won't be behaving like these other nations. That's what he's trying to do, right? It's I would say that it's kind of too broad of a thing to let to think about this in a way that he don't even want you to say the name of these other gods, because again, we think about some of the names of these other gods, like for instance, people would look at this verse right here and say that you're not supposed to say the word Lord, right? Because that is Baal, that is another god, right? But it got more to do with you aligning yourself with a particular god, and more so than you simply uttering the audibilizing this a particular name, right? It's different from you giving credence to, or you calling to the remembrance of a particular God, because again, he starts the verse off with the idea of all that I have said, you take heed to. So he wants you to take heed to the things that he, the Most High, is prescribing for you to do, not in fact aligning yourself with other individuals. And so one of the things that I always think about when I think about the idea of simply saying the names of other gods, I always go over to this verse over here, Nahum 1 and 2. You read this verse right, number 2 right here.
Yeah, Yahweh is a jealous and revenging. Yahweh is a revenger and a possessor of wrath. Yahweh takes vengeance on his adversaries, and he watches for his enemies.
Okay, very good. In the English, you miss it. In the English, you can't see what's going on over here. because it says Yahweh is jealous. He's a revenging El. He's a revenger. But over here, right, if we looked at this in the Hebrew, where this says he is a possessor of wrath, you don't got to think about it. We could just do it. Let's see. We've seen this in the Hebrew. It says that he is, here it is. He is a Baal Chama. He is a possessor. He's a possessor of wrath. But that says right there, Baal. But that's the name of a god right there, Baal. So why would he be saying that in reference to his own self? Because he's not some pagan deity. He is the Lord of Lords, right? But he's saying over here that he is the Baal Chama. He's the possessor of wrath, of heat, of anger and poison, right? And hot displeasure. He's the possessor of furious heat and indignation to those that are against him, right?
Mhm.
But the point is over here that this is the prophet speaking the words of the Most High and refers to his own self as Baal.
Who? The prophet. Oh.
Yahweh is Baal
No,
Chama.
I have a question if you don't mind.
God.
I mean, I understand what you're saying, and I do agree. But that's just like saying that, like for instance, the pagans, Gentiles, they like to associate Elohim with their false idols as well. And we know that Baal also, he was what? The Lord of the Flies, and he was also a pagan idol too, that tried to associate themselves with Yah, right? Set themselves up as Elohim. So in that sense, I know that in Hebrew, there's a lot of different meanings that cater to good as well as bad. Am I right or wrong?
Yeah. So
Okay.
so the idea is what
Thank
I'm
you for
saying.
explaining that.
The idea, what I'm saying here is that the simple utterance of the words, the collection of letters, the simple utterance of those particular collection of letters is not what the Most High don't want you to do,
Okay.
because he put those particular letters together and he described his own self in that way.
Mhm.
When he said that he is a husband to Israel, he said that he is their Baal. And so what we have to be able to, where we have to differentiate the two is literally aligning ourselves with these other gods,
Right.
and not simply putting letters together and pronouncing these things, but proclaiming these things as our own is what he don't want us to do. It's obviously.
Right.
But all I'm saying is that there's places where we see where these things, these words are used
To describe
in different ways. This that
Exactly.
word is both a common noun and it's a proper noun. It's the name of someone and it's the title of something at the same time. The word literally could mean a husband who is the possessor of his house. It literally could mean that. And then so these deities that happen to be called by the names that are I like to say, if we think about somebody turning chair into the name of a god.
Yeah.
And so I'm not going to say that I can't say the word chair anymore because somebody named this god chair.
He used the chair.
And so they took a common noun and made it proper in terms of a god. Now, I am not going to give credence and honor to the chair God,
Right. Right.
but it don't mean that I have to erase that word chair from my vocabulary.
Okay, I understand.
And so I think that again, we go back to Exodus, and what was we at 23 and what verse was we looking at? Verse 13. We have to be able to look at this again and understand what it is that he is saying in terms of the fact that we can't be aligning ourselves with these other gods, and also the thing that's all the things connected to aligning ourselves with these other gods, namely taking on their practices and forsaking the practices of the Most High, right? Which are all of these things that he just got finished saying to us, right? And so, we have to be able to look at these things and kind of understand what's going on, with them. And then so also when we look at these things, we see these three pilgrimage feasts, and we see where, again, we talked about this before in terms of the idea of these feasts. 3 times a year you celebrate these festivals. Also, and we see other scriptures where it talks about going up to Jerusalem at these times. And so we look at these, we keep these festivals every year, right? But we keep them from where we at, right? Where it's talking about the idea of, we can find places in scripture where it talks about, you can only bring your offering to the place where the Most High placed his name. And then we see these different festivals where there's all types of offerings that's brought at these times. And so, we have to understand the spirit of the law as opposed to the letter, because we dealing with the letter over here, it kills. Because any type of observance that we are doing is outside of the literal constructs of what is prescribed for us in regards to these things over here. And so what we do is memorialize these days and times. We remember them, but in the truest of the word, we're not keeping these things the way that they're prescribed in terms of according to the letter.
So is that would that say that that's why we practice Judges 5:11?
You talking about in terms of just rehearsing
the
the righteous acts? Yeah. So we're basically, that's kind of what we're doing,
Right.
We're
Yes,
basically going through the idea of we deal with the actual times when they are. We're recognizing that these days are happening at these times. We talk about their significances, but at the end of the day, we're really memorializing these times, because these pilgrimage feasts,
Right.
are times that we supposed to be going
To Israel.
to the land,
Right.
but not only to the land, but to the temple
Where the
that
land
don't
is at.
exist.
Yeah, that doesn't exist.
and taking our offering to the priest
right.
who's not over
Who's
there,
not over there.
right? And
Yeah.
so again, but we can't say that we can't just throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Say we don't do it.
I don't keep the feast.
I don't keep the feast because we're not over there.
We have to again think about the spirit of the law.
Right.
And again, we think about the fact that these laws are helping us to understand Yeshua and what he did for us. We see that greater fulfillment of these things. So when we rehearse these festive times, it causes us to be able to understand Yeshua in a better way. And if our goal in life is not to understand Yeshua in a better way, I don't know what we're doing. What are we doing out here if that's not our goal, right? And so we remember these days and these times, but we really are only just rehearsing these righteous acts,
Yeah.
right? Okay, so look at all of these. Let's see. Let's go ahead and read down through the bottom, and we'll finish up here. Let's start reading here at 20.
See, I am sending a messenger before you to guard you in the way and to bring you into a place which I have prepared. Be on guard before him and obey his voice. Do not rebel against him, for he is not going to pardon your transgression, for my name is in him. But if you diligently obey his voice and shall do all that I speak, then I shall be an enemy to your enemies and a distresser to those who distress you.
That's very important.
For my messenger shall go before you and shall bring you into the Amorites and the Hittites and the Perizzites and the Canaanites and the Hivites and the Jebusites, and I shall cut them off. Do not bow down to the mighty ones, nor serve them, nor do according to their works, but without fail overthrow them, and without fail break down their pillars. And you shall serve Yahweh your Elohim, and he shall bless your bread and your water, and I shall remove sickness in your midst, from your midst. None shall miscarry or be barren in your land. I shall fill the number of your days. I shall send my fear before you and cause confusion among all the people to whom you come, and make your enemies turn their backs on you. Backs to you. And I shall send hornets before you, which shall drive out the Hivites and the Canaanite and the Hittites from before you. I shall not drive them out from before you in 1 year, lest the land become a waste and the beasts of the field become too numerous for you. Little by little, I shall drive them out from before you until you have increased and you inherit the land. And I shall set the border from the sea of reeds to the sea of the Philistines, and from the wilderness to the river, for I shall give the inhabitants of the land into your hand, and you shall drive them out before you. Do not make a covenant with them, nor with their mighty ones. Let them not dwell in the land, lest they make you sin against me when you serve their mighty ones, when it becomes a snare to you.
Okay, very good. So when we look at this over here, first of all, if we go back, we see where this this messenger helps us. It gives us kind of a picture of a type of spirit inside of us, the type of Ruach Kodesh dwells inside of us, who we know of as when Yeshua talks about, the fact that he will, his death, burial, resurrection, he goes back to the Father so that him and the Father could come and make his abode in those that believe, right? This messenger that goes before you to guard you in the way and to bring you in the place which I have prepared, right? When we think about the what Yeshua does for us, right? He brings us into the place which he has prepared. The way that we get to that land of promise is through our obedience to the Spirit that dwells on the inside of us, who is pictured for us in this messenger that will lead the people to the land. Look what it says. Be on guard before him, the messenger. Obey his voice, the messenger. Do not rebel against him, for he is not going to pardon your transgression. And so it's interesting when we see this verse over 21 where it says, for he is not going to pardon your transgression. That's not a general statement to say that he's not going to pardon your transgression. That is a statement that's directly connected to your rebelliousness against him. Do not rebel against him, for he's not going to pardon your transgression. Remember, we talked about transgression and what transgression even is. It's rebelliousness. Transgression is rebellion against the Most High. So when you transgress against the Spirit, when you transgress against this messenger that's leading and guiding you, when you transgress against him, he's going to pardon it. Right? We read that verse the other week. We talk about after you have what is it? Hebrews 10 and 26. Right? If you turn your back, I'm paraphrasing, on after you've come to the knowledge of what Messiah has done for you, and you willfully sin against that, there's no more forgiveness for sins, right? There's no more sacrifice for that, what you've done. That's the same thing what this is saying. Do not rebel against him, for he is not going to pardon your transgression because you rebelled against him, right? Be on guard before him and obey his voice. The Most High said to obey the voice of the messenger that's leading you into the land. If you rebel against it, it's not going to be forgiven you. And so, when we look at that, that's a clear picture of our situation with the Spirit inside of us. If we sit up here and go against the Spirit, if we go against the Spirit that's been put on the inside of us, that actually is the Most High dwelling on the inside of us. When we rebel against that Spirit, we're rebelling against the Most High, and he's not going to pardon that transgression. Right? It's one thing to be out here and you making making a mistake where you're trying to do what's right, and you fail in your attempts. But in this situation where we're talking about this messenger that's sent, where it's known who the messenger is, you're following the messenger, he's taking you from one place to the other. It's not a mystery. You know that the messenger is right over there. You're to follow what he says and obey his voice. So there's a knowledge there, which connects us to this Hebrews 10 and 26. It's not as if to say where I think the Most High said ABC to me. I'm not sure exactly. So I'm going to do it because I don't know. But there's knowledge involved over here. And the same thing with Hebrews 10 and 26. There's knowledge involved. When you know that it's the Most High and you go against that, when you know what it is that Yeshua did for you, and you reject that, there's no turning back from that. And the same thing over here. When you know that you're hearing the voice of the Most High, and you turn around from that, not you think, not I think the Most High is telling me to do X, Y, Z. When you know that, that's why we talk about this idea of this messenger being sent, this thing that's literally taking them through the wilderness, and they know that it was sent from the Most High. For them to go against that thing that's known, for them to go against that, the messenger's not going to pardon that. And so the same thing is true when we think about the idea of the Spirit inside of us, right? when you get to the place of knowing and being able to know what it is that the Spirit is saying for you to do, and then for you to buck against, to rebel, there's knowledge incorporated in the idea of rebelling. Because to rebel is different than just not doing. Because if in rebellion, there's knowledge. I know what I should be doing, but I ain't doing that. I'm rebelling. There's knowledge in it. It's not like ignorance. There's a difference. If I'm ignorantly doing something, that's not rebellion.
Right.
Rebellion is me intentionally doing something. Man, I ain't thinking about what you talking about. I ain't doing that.
Yeah.
I'm not doing it. I'm not doing
I was explaining with one sister in the Rumble Room, and they was justifying why they celebrate Christmas. And I said, well, I know that Jesus wasn't born December 25th, but it's always a button. What comes after button lies. I follow the ways that they set the day apart to celebrate. I said, well, how would you feel if your birthday was in November and they celebrated your birthday in February? How would you really feel if you into that stuff? You know what I mean? I said, you're just a lion. But this is a part of rebelling because you know it's not in his word.
Yeah.
Yet you insist on following the world, which becomes a friend of the world, but leaves you to be an enemy of Yahweh.
So I think that there could be two possible situations over here. Either it's just outright rebellion. You really do know, and you're saying, I know, but I don't care.
Yeah.
Or you don't really know. Some people might think that they know a thing, but don't really know. And for me, I feel like if you really knew, it's going to cause you to do a certain thing, right? Where this Proverbs talks about the beginning of knowledge is the beginning of the fear of Yahweh is the beginning of knowledge or the beginning of wisdom.
Right.
So in that fear is that knowledge of who the Most High is, which causes you to behave in a certain way. Sometimes say that we know what ramifications are, but we don't really know. Because if we really did know, we wouldn't be acting like that. If these kids sit up here and really know what daddy capable of doing, they wouldn't sit up here and really act like they be acting sometimes. They forget they need to be reminded. And so I'm saying that people sit up there and say that they know something is right. But if they really knew, they wouldn't be acting like that, or they just rebellious. So that's when I think about the idea of what it talks about in Hebrews in 10:26, where people are professing to have the knowledge of Yeshua, but don't really have it, or they rebels. One of the two, right?
Talk about the sheep and the goat.
And the goat is clean. The goat's a clean animal, right? But when Yeshua returns, he talks about keeping the sheep and getting rid of the goats. So when we think about that idea, you have individuals who had a type of a relationship, but it wasn't a real relationship.
Right.
And so there's a little bit of ambiguity in this whole, like, the substance of their knowledge. And so come to find out that their knowledge wasn't real, just like the ones who did all of those things in his name. They had a type of relationship with Messiah, but it wasn't like a real one. Because he said, I never knew you. He didn't say I stopped knowing you.
Yeah, never.
I never knew you. I never had an intimate relationship with you. And so when we look at this, thinking about it in terms of these verses over here, in terms of this messenger that's sent, and having this idea of the ones that rebel against him, he's not going to pardon that transgression.
Mm-hmm.
We have to have this idea of rebellion there. In other words, there is this intentional going against what Most High is prescribing for his people, an intentional thing, rebellion. It's not by accident. I'm not mistakenly going against, right? It's not by accident. This over here, the thing that he's not going to pardon is intentional transgression.
Yeah. I had Matt try to tell me when I told one guy, sorry to mention his name, but I said, well, when the Messiah tells you, I said, man, I'm concerned. I wish you not to hear that. You put me in a position to hear that. I never knew you. Depart from me, you workers of lawlessness.
Mm-hmm.
He gonna say, oh no, that's the Greek word imonia, and it's iniquity. That's just all I'm saying. You know what I'm saying? If you break it down to it.
Yeah. And it takes an overall understanding of what the Most High is doing. When we think about the fact that the spirit that he poured out is getting us back to his character.
Right.
The spirit that, and we're closing with this, the spirit that he put out is something that's bringing us back to his character. And so when we get to this idea of, those things are done away with, when we're thinking about these things properly, it doesn't make sense, because the new covenant, the thing that he said that he was establishing the night that he was captured, and the night that the next day when he said that, when he died for the sins of his people, when we understand Yeshua as being the Lamb of Elohim, the one that came to sacrifice for our sins, when we understand what it was that he was doing, you can't separate the law from that, because the new covenant is the law in your hearts. The new covenant is the spirit of the Most High living and dwelling in you and causing you to walk out his character. And so when we understand what the spirit of the Most High is out here doing for us, we can make statements like that, not not with knowledge. We can't with knowledge make those statements, right? So great people that have been confused out here. And again, looking at these laws, statutes, and commands, it's up to us, those that know, to recognize our brother's ox that's in that ditch, where they're in a place where they can't help themselves. They don't know that ox in the ditch. You're the one who sees it.
Right.
You're the one who sees their ox in the ditch, and you can go and help them and say, look, after you've done it, right? You're not even telling them that you're doing it. You're just helping them. And so the same thing is true when we look at these people out here who are confused with these false doctrines and things. Their oxes are in a ditch, and you see it. Somebody stole their inheritance, and you see the thief right over there, and you're able to strong arm the thief and take the inheritance off of them and give it back to whom it belongs. And so when we can see that in these scriptures over here that we just looked at today, with these ideas of understanding the spiritual significance of these laws, statutes, and commands. So we want to be able to always be able to see the underlying principles in the scriptures, because it's showing us something from a spiritual perspective. Right, we're spirit beings. We're trapped in this body, but the essence of who we are is a spiritual being, and so we have to be able to understand the spirit of these laws, because they're telling us some wonderful truths that if we not looking at it from the proper perspective, we're gonna always miss it. Right, we're gonna never get what it is that it's trying to show us.
Very good.
Okay, so on that note, we're gonna go ahead and be done for today. Next week, y'all willing, we'll be back and deal with some more of this word that the Most High has given to us, right? His Torah, his law, statutes, and commands, and continue to try to understand what it is that these laws are showing us, so that we can continue to grow closer to the Most High and His Son Yeshua HaMashiach.
And let's say, ask you a question before you go, brother.
Go ahead.
Like as I was explaining earlier, I have love for this brother who I've been debating with for some time, and he's been doing it for years and years and years. I'm trying to show him that it's not you that I'm attacking. You know, I'm calling out this demon in you because you're being rebellious. For so many years, Israelites, no matter where they came from, they were sharing the truth with you, but you kept being rebellious. So you're acting in the form of witchcraft, which shows and implies that you are possessed.
Yeah.
That needs to be rebuked.
It's sometimes it's hard really to deal with people, because as Paul talks about the fact that you from a carnal perspective can't understand spiritual things.
Right.
And so that becomes an issue where, you know, you have a spiritual perspective, they have a carnal perspective. You're trying to, it's like somebody, it's like the kids talking to the kids' French teacher talking to me in French.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I don't know what she's saying.
So you ain't gonna
She's sitting up there talking to me. I'm like, huh? Hiskey, what did she just say? I can't understand French. Carnal people cannot understand spiritual things, right? And so the same thing is true. We need Yeshua.
That's right.
We need the Spirit of the Most High dwelling on the inside of us, so that we could understand these spiritual things. Until that happens, you might as well, you could be beating them over the head with all types of truths. But if they don't have the Spirit to unlock their minds, then that's all you doing is beating them over the head. So it's important that, well, I think a thing that we have to kind of get to the place of is that you can only deal with somebody in their mind for so long,
Right.
Until the Spirit unlocks that mind. Then you got to deal with people in the basics. You need Yeshua, you need the Ruach HaKodesh. Once they got that from a sincere perspective, not this thing that they get, you know, so repeat after me, and from now on you're saved forever, and there's nothing that you could do to lose your salvation. Say these magic words that I repeat after me, and then your whole life will be changed. We have to get to the place where we sincerely believe in Yeshua and the thing that he did for us. And when we have that authentic spiritual conversion, then we begin to understand these spiritual truths, right? And so that's that's where we coming from over here, and that's what we're gonna continue to do to cause people to turn to Yeshua. And then once you've done that, now we can start dealing with these other things, because you can't. It's the putting the cart before the horse. I can't explain to you all of these deep spiritual revelations, and you're carnal. I got to get you. You got to begin to look at things from a spiritual perspective first, and then now we talking about something.
Be frustrated.
Yeah. Okay, so that being said, we're gonna say for now, Shabbat Shalom. Everybody have a wonderful week, and y'all willing, we will be back next Shabbat. Hallelujah.
Hallelujah.